Hello, beautiful sacred souls. Are you attracting your life's challenges or are you just healing? There is this concept in many spiritual traditions that we attract experiences. I'm going to break down this concept from a trauma informed perspective. While there is some kernel of truth in this idea that you attract your experiences based on your energy, I want to name something clearly and compassionately. For many people, especially those with a trauma history, this idea becomes blaming, not liberating. This is a script that I've written. I want you to know that whether or not you're doing deep healing work, regulating your nervous system, setting boundaries, and living with more presence is the pathway for all of us. And even when we're experiencing regulating our nervous system, setting boundaries, and being more present within ourselves, the fact is that life is still going to have challenges. That does not mean that you are spiritually failing or that you are attracting these experiences. Today, I want to explore this from three angles: trauma-informed psychology, neuroscience, and a more mature, embodied spirituality. I'll help you understand why staying calm while feeling annoyed by challenges is often a sign of health, not misalignment. Why the "you attract everything" narrative can be harmful. The simplified manifestation narrative assumes a few things. One, that we exist in a vacuum. Two, that the nervous system isn't shaped by trauma. Three, that other people's behaviors, systems, timing, and history doesn't matter. From a trauma-informed perspective, this just isn't accurate, and it also isn't accurate to the human experience. In a trauma-informed way, I want to reassure you that you do not attract other people's unhealed parts. Family systems can refuse to change, and that isn't evidence of your vibration or your level of healing. Bureaucracy can create delays, and that has nothing to do with you. Economic and health realities can exist, and that isn't a reflection of your inner state. And there is a natural friction that is a part of being a human being that isn't about the level of healing that you have done. When we tell people that they created every challenge, we're often asking their nervous system to carry more responsibility than it ever was supposed to or should have to carry. That is not empowerment. That's spiritualized self-blame. What neuroscience actually shows. Let's talk about what's happening biologically. When you've lived through chronic stress or trauma, your nervous system learns to scan for threat, to overfunction, to tolerate too much, to stay activated, or to collapse in order to just survive. However, as healing happens, something important changes. Your nervous system begins to become more regulated and to feel friction without dissociation or without exploding. And that is why people often say, "I'm calm, but I'm annoyed that there are still so many challenges." This isn't regression or an indication that you are attracting these challenges. This is actually evidence that your prefrontal cortex is online, that your vagal tone is improving, and that your system is saying, "I can see clearly now, and this actually costs me." Annoyance is not low vibration. It is actually boundary awareness. Let's explore calm and annoyance as a developmental milestone. Earlier in healing, challenges often trigger anxiety, shame, overwhelm, emotional flooding. However, as healing progresses, the challenge instead triggers clarity, discernment, frustration without collapse. And this shift matters. From an internal family systems lens, this is self-energy, or as I like to call it, the inner compass, saying, "I'm here. I can hold this. I'm not willing to abandon myself anymore. You are not attracting your problems. You're simply less willing to absorb misalignment quietly. Here's a spiritually mature reframe that doesn't blame the nervous system or your energy. When you begin to heal, you recognize that life still includes friction and that this isn't a reflection of your level of healing. The reality is, bodies age, systems lack, other people act from fear or unhealed wounds. None of this is a reflection of your worth or your vibration. Healing instead is the realization that our tolerance for dysfunction lowers. What you once normalized now feels irritating because you no longer need it in order to survive. Presence removes anesthesia. When you're no longer dissociated, you feel the costs of things more clearly. Integration phases feel busy. When identity shifts, loose ends surface, relations clarify, structures reorganize, boundaries solidify. This can feel like, why so much all at once, even when you're deeply well. Why this is often misunderstood spiritually. Well, many spiritual traditions focus on containment. Observe your thoughts. Return to the present moment. Don't engage. Containment can be helpful, but without inner relationship, it can become a form of emotional bypassing. Neuroscience shows that unacknowledged signals in the nervous system don't disappear. They often show up later as chronic stress, fatigue, irritability. When we add loving awareness to containment, curiosity, compassion, relationship, the inner system learns it doesn't have to be escalated in order to be heard. Often your thoughts are not the problem. They're actually signaling a boundary, a value, or an unmet need. All right, if it feels okay, take a moment now. Begin to notice a challenge in your life that has felt annoying rather than overwhelming. Begin to notice what happens inside your body, and then gently ask yourself, is this something I need to fix? Or is this something I'm no longer meant to carry? Notice what happens inside your body. How does it respond? Don't pay attention to your mind. Notice your body. If you notice a softening or a sense of release, this is a sign that your body feels relief, which often means that it is releasing and that it isn't something that you need to fix. It's not something that you're meant to carry. Tension, on the other hand, often means a boundary is needing attention. So there's no right answer here. There's only information. All right, you are not wrong for doing healing work. If your system feels calmer but less tolerant, if you feel more capable but less willing to overextend, if challenges feel irritating rather than destabilizing, that is not spiritual failure. That instead is an indication that your nervous system is learning self-respect. Healing doesn't mean life becomes frictionless or problems stop happening. It means you stop sacrificing yourself to make friction more tolerable. The bigger arc, when our inner relationship becomes secure and loving, our outer relationships become clearer. Boundaries become easier. We stop confusing endurance with virtue, and life becomes more honest, even when it's imperfect. A regulated nervous system doesn't mean you never feel frustration. It means frustration no longer owns you, and it no longer goes unheard. If this perspective resonates You're not broken. You're likely integrating. And that phase deserves just as much compassion as earlier stages of healing. And if you're not there yet, but you'd like to reach this state of being, and you want to go deeper into this work, you might consider exploring my book, The Divine Within, Healing Ourselves to Heal the World, which is available on online bookstores such as Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Walmart, and Powell's Book. Or visit my website, blossomingheartwellness.com, to learn more about working with me or my online courses. And if this teaching supported you, consider liking it, subscribing, or sharing. It helps this work reach the people who need it. You don't need to be more aligned. You simply need to be more alive, which helps you become more aligned. It's a natural progression. I'm sending you such love and appreciation for who you are and where you are on your healing journey.